Good evening, America, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Don Pravda, and welcome to the Twist News.
And I'm Erika Grey.
And what's happening, America? What's happening, Erika? Did you know that your name is part of America? Erika.
I never knew that, Don.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty good. America, Erika. Never thought of that. That's a first. That was pretty insightful.
And now you can brand your name.
I gotta hand it to you.
Okay.
America, Erika.
There we go.
Erika talking about America. But Erika wants to talk about global happenings, not just America. But Don, that's where you come in. You're the America dude.
Well, the gentleman who was the 45th President of the United States is about to become the 47th President of the United States. Interesting that the man leaving, Mr. Biden, 5 letters in his name, Trump, 5 letters in his name, and Mr. Vance, 5 letters in his name. So that must be a big year for the fives.
That's a spooky observation, Don. That's like Spookville.
Okay.
5 letter in the name, 5 letters in another name. What makes you think of these things, Don?
Well, that's what makes me very strange and unusual. And that's why we're here, to be with you. The weird happenings, the unusual coincidences.
Well, one of the most unusual unusual happenings was when I listened to Biden talk about what he's achieved in the United States. I had to click it off because it was pure fiction. And I've said this about Biden before. He likes to repeat fiction on all the things he's accomplished for the United States. He's increased our allies. That's one of them. The economy. I mean, I don't know where he's getting this from. I think he sat and actually wrote all the things he would have liked to have accomplished for America, and he just spoke it like he accomplished it. I mean, have you heard some of his speeches on his accomplishments?
Well, that's why he's been in politics for over a half century. He's crafted the image of somebody who's a doer, gets legislation passed, and makes America better. And he's been doing it for a long time, and he did reach his goal, finally become president.
Yes, he did. And now what he's doing is he's making up fiction, Don, absolute fiction on what he's accomplished in the United States. Fiction.
Amen.
It sounds good to him. And maybe he says, well, gee, if I tell everybody this in the United States, they'll believe it. They'll believe his
Well, that's the idea.
Fiction.
They have to believe.
What he's dreaming he accomplished.
Okay. Well, 8 years as vice president and 4 years as president, that's a lot of power in those years. And now he's leaving to write his memoirs in Wilmington Beach, Delaware. And maybe we'll give a critique about that book one day.
Oh, I can already tell you. I don't have to read it. I already know. It's going to be a continuation of the fiction that he's already repeating of what he accomplished for the United States.
And did they pay you $20 from the Trump campaign to say that? Oh, no, you didn't. Okay. Just a little humor there. We have a kind of unusual
Donnie,
sense of humor.
what would make you say that?
Well,
What would make you say that?
Well, we have a new incoming president. He has done rather well in 7 battleground states. He proved his merit. And we're moving on to a different era. And that's what we'll be covering. That of Donald J. Trump, the new administration, and there's, relatively speaking, a new Congress and a lot happening. And some of these people they're funny. They're as funny as we are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
It's going to definitely be an interesting 4 years because, as you know, I follow what's happening in Europe and report on what's happening in Europe. And boy, has Donald Trump ruffled feathers in the European Union. And he is going to cause a tectonic shift. But it's a shift that was going to happen anyway, but he's going to add impetus to this shift, speed to the shift. because they're so worried about a Trump presidency. The liberals, and the liberals mostly are within the European Union. They reign within the European Union. Liberals in a different sense than our liberals.
We were in Europe together, and there's no question the answer was they fear Donald J. Trump. They fear the return of his presidency, and they're not prepared for it yet.
And because of that, they're going full steam ahead with European Union defense. So now there's a commissioner, Ursula von der Leyen, in her second commission. In case you're listening and you don't know who Ursula is, Ursula heads the European Union, and under Ursula are commissioners who have what are called portfolios. These are her vice presidents, and one of them, Don, is going to handle defense. And there's a white paper that is about to come out, which is going to be 100, basically within so many days, they want kind of like a, hold on, I got to think of what the best way to say this is, but a nuclear blast of how fast their defense union, the final touches will take place. Like they want it at a speed that they haven't had before, and really propelling it. So that's what they're planning, because they're figuring that Donald Trump is going to pull out of Ukraine. They're terrified of Russia. They are convinced that after Ukraine, Vladimir Putin is going to go into the rest of Europe via the Baltic and Eastern Bloc nations, and you can't convince them otherwise. So as far as they're concerned, Trump possibly will be pulling out of NATO. But I also listened to the new Secretary General, and he doesn't feel that Trump will pull out, but they're also ready for Trump to give them a real hard time about the budget. But Mark Rutte, who is the new Secretary General, is actually in agreement with Trump that the budget should be increased. Trump is now saying 5%. He's saying that at least 3%, so it's going to go beyond the 2%. Now, sorry, I just talked your ear off, Donnie.
But maybe they're pulling him in. Maybe he's going to be part and parcel of this group. He's going to negotiate with them. Will there be world peace? Is that possible?
Oh, no.
The answer is no.
Don,
But we
no.
know that.
Oh, what would make you think such a thing?
Well,
you can't think such a thing.
of course,
World
it's
peace.
in his last days, but there is a ceasefire in Israel, a historic moment. The hostages will be released. It's going to be a gradual one. We wish it would be a little faster, but it's going to happen. And we pray for the brave people in Israel and these hostages for what they've endured. So that's encouraging, and that's a headline today.
Oh, it definitely is. And we're also seeing Biden take all the credit for it. Let's not forget that Trump basically threatened Hamas and said if there was not a deal by his inauguration, then there would be real hell to pay. So you have to wonder who really gets the credit. So my question to you, Don, is who gets the credit? Both? One?
I'd say both. Let's not forget, when did the Abraham Accords happen? It happened during the Trump administration. It happened to very significant players and lawyers, and it just months of negotiations. Let's not forget, in the first Trump administration, that's when the Abraham Accords occurred. That's when it happened. Months of negotiations. Top law firms, let's not forget, the president's son-in-law was vital to this peace treaty. And let's call it part 2 of the Abraham Accords, to be continued, Erika.
Trump's going to have a major impact for Israel in his next term. There's no doubt. No doubt. And right now, already the U.S. and French President Emmanuel Macron, everybody's already screaming for the two-state solution, but Trump actually gets that the two-state solution is not a solution at all. it's only going to lead to the second state, the Palestinian state, becoming a proxy for Iran.
Right.
Proxy or a vehicle. I mean, I don't get Biden. I don't get Macron. There's so much news. There's so much information that they're missing. And it doesn't even make geopolitical sense. And we've talked about that for the two-state solution. Neither does it make geoeconomic sense. But they can't wait to start screaming for a two-state solution. Just can't wait.
Which will never work, which will never happen, will not bring peace to the Middle East, or hard to imagine anything positive.
Because then you have Iran showcasing its arsenal and letting the world know, look, we're strong, we're not defeated here, and we're ready. And I think that what the world doesn't get about a two-state solution is, one, how dangerous Iran is. And second, let's look at Israel. It would totally change Israel. The fate of the Jewish people would lie in the balance, because once Iran gets a foothold through a Palestinian state that will not be friendly, no matter what they say on the world stage. I mean, I don't understand where these leaders are going and how they can't see the threat to the Jewish people, the threat to the nation of Israel. But Trump actually gets that. He gets it.
Trump gets that.
He gets it.
With obviously heavy support from the Jewish community, particularly in the Orthodox, the ultra-Orthodox, and the groups that keep the commandments. And of course, there are others as well. Mm-hmm. And let's not forget the evangelical Christians, enormous supporters of Mr. Trump.
But if you eliminate all of that, let's eliminate all of that, and you look at the contributions of Israel to the world, the agreements that Israel has with the European Union, right now there's an association agreement, the agreements and treaties with the United States, it would shoot those agreements, that's what I'm saying, it would upset the geoeconomic balance. And by the way, that would have a contagion effect around the world. Because Israel is your democracy there in the Middle East, now you're going to let Iran, and then Qatar is going to be right along with Iran, boosting Iran with its finances, and it will definitely cause a tectonic shift for the globe. It'll cause a shift in industries. I think it's feel-good legislation. When you really analyze it from that perspective, it doesn't make any sense. And if we think we have problems in the United States now, just let Israel get kicked to the curb, so to speak. Let Iran take the lead in the Middle East and control some of the industries, or the gas industry, which would then end up happening, and have access to Israel's resources, because it would be able to wage war against the other half. I mean, and forget, you've mentioned in a previous show, the tourism industry.
Yes, which is almost entirely destroyed by this war, not 100%, but you cannot compare the amount of people who went to Israel in past years compared to now during the war. And we're very grateful for all the Jewish groups and the Christian groups that are going to Israel. People are very dedicated to the idea of the Jewish state. And let's also commend the evangelical Christians and Christians who are visiting Israel at this time.
Now, let's switch gears to the California fires. My goodness, it looks like the apocalypse in Los Angeles. And people are thrust into poverty overnight.
Absolutely.
Overnight.
Without insurance, which was made almost impossible. And story to follow, what happened to the water? What happened to the water pressure? Why in an area as affluent, we should say, as Palisades, what happened to the ability to put out the fire 100%. Granted, the firefighters are doing the very best they can, and they've been absolutely heroic with the industry at their disposal.
But with the winds against them, let's face it, the winds were against Los Angeles. Do you think that the firefighters would have been able to contain this with the adequate amount of water?
It sure seemed a large percentage could have been, we say, put out faster. I think it's a sad story. There's going to be full investigations. There's going to be something to watch. And amazingly, and I was there in Hawaii, let's not forget about the Haina. It went down also very, very fast in the area of Maui. And it seems like it could not happen, but it did happen. And I'm sure that they are learning lessons from that tragedy a few years ago, as the LA area is as well.
And what's really scary about all of this is at the rate the natural disasters are happening, where is all the money going to keep coming from for the disaster relief? Where is it going to come from? And it's not just happening in the United States. This is a global issue.
It is.
It's frightening. It is frightening. And in the United States, our deficit is already through the roof. What are we going to print money for these disasters?
And I suppose that's part of the theme of this administration, saving money from waste, creating a new government agency to clamp down on excessive spending. We'll see how that works. And we also are made quite aware, if in fact it is the goal to remove migrants who are legally in America, that's going to be a mighty expensive tab to do. We'll see how that works as well. And we'll see if these governments around America cooperate with these expulsions.
Well, it's also a very expensive tab when you figure the entitlements that they get when they come to the United States. And you times that by about 12 million people, which is, I believe, the number, and that's a considerable amount. So you have to weigh how much is it going to cost versus how much is it costing because of the entitlements. Now, I haven't done that math, but that would be an interesting point to look at.
Because they're cutting off the ATM cards in New York City over the last few months, and they're trying to cut down the amount of new migrants in the New York area.
And aren't they shutting down some of these?
Yes, they are. They're shutting down some of the temporary places and the hotels that were housing them.
So were you seeing New York change because of this? What's happening to these migrants? Are they on the streets more?
Well, there's obviously been a rise in crime. It depends what you read, what you hear. It's been contained, but there's been more violent acts in 2024 than the past year by a substantial amount. But
You mean 2025? The statistic just came out that apparently the crime had gone down, but now in January alone went up like by about 49%.
yeah, spike in December, January. So another story to follow. And however, I'm a New Yorker, and I do have this belief.
Excuse me, Don. We know you're a New Yorker.
Okay.
You can't peel Don off the streets of New York. He's such a New Yorker.
Born and raised, New York City. But
Like you're part of the asphalt, Don.
Well, I'd like to express just a few years ago what people had to say, starting the year of the pandemic, which was New York is dead, New York is over. Industry will be leaving New York. Nobody will be returning to the buildings, the office buildings, the skyscrapers, but actually a very new generation, particularly young people, have come into New York. And somebody's paying those rents and seeking opportunity.
Are you saying those buildings are full? Those buildings are still empty.
They are not full.
Yeah, they're still empty. And by the way, New York now has a very dodgy look to it. It didn't have that before. And a lot of those streets are empty. At least when I've been in and out, streets are empty.
We see a kind of a small.
And you're saying, Don, that it's come back.
I think it has come back. There's obviously certain landlords that are luckier than others. There's been major leases that have been signed recently. Every month another one. And businesses are not, for those who thought that everybody's leaving, not true at all. Most are staying.
A lot of them are in Connecticut.
A lot of them are in
We have
Florida.
a lot of New Yorkers here in Connecticut.
A lot of them are in sunny Florida this winter. And will remain to be seen what will happen. But as a New Yorker said who fled to Fort Wayne, Indiana, she said, well, I may have an apartment in Fort Wayne, Indiana, but New York is my home, and I'll be returning one day, and that is happening.
Okay. I disagree with you a bit. I
Okay.
seem to feel that the crowds that were there are not. I mean, you have more crowds in the Times Square area, but not like before. I mean, there was a time you could barely walk through the place. And there was so many people and so many people visiting. So I see a change, and you are seeing a lot more of the immigrants on the streets of New York. You're seeing a lot more of that.
You do. How it plays out, well, remains to be seen, but
New York's still a happening place.
it's a happening
It's
place.
still a
There's
happening
no
place,
question.
no question about it.
A record number of Broadway plays in New York. Every theater is filled, by the way.
Really?
That's right. Every theater in
Oh,
Broadway
interesting.
that's considered a classified Broadway theater is operating. Most of the off-Broadway theaters also running. So, and there's a return to filming in New York as well. Everywhere you go, there's another show, or let's more distinctly, a cable show being filmed.
Wait a minute, probably a YouTube show being filmed.
YouTube show. Well
Yeah,
said.
it's not the old shows being filmed. Those have kind of gone by the wayside. It's
Right.
YouTube and
Although-
streaming, and
Although I believe Annie returned for a while.
I saw that.
Maybe if we get lucky in a few years, Oklahoma will be roaring back. Oh, Oklahoma.
Come on, Don, go ahead. Let it rip. Go ahead. What?
Well, let's see,
Go
what
ahead.
else
Go
can
ahead,
we
sing it.
think
No,
of?
no, they want to hear
what
you
a
sing,
beautiful
Don.
Morning, oh, what a beautiful day. And then Gordon McRae comes out with Shirley Jones and in the film, and maybe there'll be a reprise again. How about The Sound of Music, My Fair Lady? But on the other hand, there may be a rap show
Okay.
on Broadway, so we'll have it all. So if we get some bucks together, let's,
Yeah, remember
Bring it
that
back.
show we went to go and see because we thought we would be doing a review about it? We're not going to name the show because it was so bad. That was bad.
that was a bad show.
Okay, we're not going to tell you the
We've
show
seen-
because
we've
we
seen
don't want to
bad
like hurt the.
shows, right.
It was bad.
Yeah.
Like on a scale of bad, it was worse.
This gets a big B. Bad. Real bad.
And then the best part about the show was during a fire scene.
Yes,
There
there
was
was,
an actual fire
there
alarm.
was
We
actually a
got to
fire
leave.
alarm went off, and I think
We
the
got
best
to
part
leave.
of, and,
Sorry.
Eric and I agreed, the best part of this show, which we're not going to name, maybe next time we will, was leaving the theater when it was over. That was the best part of the show, and we were relieved.
Can you imagine? We actually went to that
As
show. and
Yogi
felt
Berra
relief.
said, it ain't over till it's over. And Yogi couldn't wait till that one was over.
But the effects of while there's the simulation of fire, that an actual fire alarm goes off was priceless.
Yeah.
That was just priceless. That was the best part of the whole show, and the best part of the whole show was that we got to leave.
And watching the
Instead of
firemen
watching the
come
whole
on the
show.
scene and get out of their trucks, let's add that. Trucks, firemen, action, men earning their pay.
Yes, that was the best part. We're going to head out to the Anne Frank exhibit
Yes, we are.
early February.
As
Be coming
important-
back on and talking about it.
The lessons gleaned from such an event, and that beautiful, lovely teenager who wrote those diaries, those books, and the legacy which her father has handed down to the world. Most definitely as important now as ever.
Oh, definitely, with
Yeah.
the unbelievable spike in anti-Semitism around the globe. Unbelievable spike. So I'm looking forward to that exhibit. Apparently, they've recreated the secret annex. They've recreated the whole scene. And plus, they have different artifacts there. So that's going to be a wonderful exhibit. I know it's for a short time.
Come to Manhattan and check it out. And what else is in the news?
Ursula von der Leyen was very sick with the flu. It's not the flu, excuse me. She had
Chairwoman.
extreme pneumonia
Women of EU.
and didn't tell anybody. And apparently she's operating from a hospital bed, or was operating, handling this whole union. There was a big upset there, but I'm going to be very interested in the European Union's next series of goals that it's looking to achieve between the defense as well as its competition directives that they're going to be going forward with, making really drastic changes that already have been on the table, but now there's going to again have speed to this, and again in part because of Donald Trump's presidency.
On Middle East negotiations, let's see what happens. Iran, North Korea, that's when Mr. Trump's passed. It seems like we've forgotten Mr. Kim. I think he's going to be a factor again.
Oh, he already is.
He already is.
Threatening
He's,
and
yeah.
his usual stuff, his usual charade game.
I've had in case Kim is deposed, I think he should settle in Yemen. I think that's be a good vacation place for him, permanently.
I don't think he'd ever go to Yemen.
Well, maybe
Where did you conjure that from?
Yemen.
Yemen. Kim Jong-un in Yemen.
I think he'd have a lot of friends there, personally. He'll
You
make
do?
friends quickly.
Now, how do you figure that out?
I think Mr. Kim would enjoy dinner with the Houthis. That's my personal feeling. It would be a hoot to be with the Houthis. Kim, well, maybe there'd be like a rock group. Kim and the Houthis.
Launching missiles.
Yeah, launching missiles.
Come to our party. We're going to be launching missiles. It'll be a
Like
party
these
you'll never forget.
People have nothing better to do than launch missiles into the Middle East, into the waterways towards Israel. Well, what's a Houthi going to do?
Well, now they're really being bumped up, jacked up by Iran, pouring a lot of funding into that. I mean, all of a sudden they've just, poof. I mean, they were causing issues with the ships, but now they really have emerged as this real force, like
They are.
launching a real attack on Israel. And again, they wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for Iran, the bad boy of the Middle East, actually. Iran is the bad boy of the Middle East.
With wide tentacles, and they're not going away. Sometimes we miss the former regime in Iran, the good old days with the Shah of Iran. Remember those times he was deposed in '79? What a shame.
Yeah, this has been a long time. You would think that this would not last as long as it's lasts, but there are some indicators. Iran has a lot of trouble within its economy, and the younger people in Iran are not happy with the clerics. They don't want this nonsense. So there's potentially grounds for a revolution within Iran itself.
Absolutely. And democracy should be encouraged around the world, and it will happen.
Well, it all depends on which brand of democracy.
Okay.
There's all different ways that we call it democratic, and it's really not. There's a lot of
Traditions in the world, different ideas.
I mean, honestly, there's just no perfect democracy, although India would tell you that they're a perfect democracy. It's very, very hard to achieve, and sometimes two extremes produce the same end, and we see that in the United States, and I won't go into details. And the European Union, forget their brand of democracy. That's not democracy. That's they're another type of an authoritarian. Their rule of law. And they want to, in their next treaty, make social issues the law. So if you violate these things, you could face some serious consequences. That's not freedom of speech, freedom of ideas. That's authoritarian. Some of the proposals in the coming next treaty are pretty hair-raising. And that's one of them. The European conservatives basically have come out and said that this thing would be a monster. It would be a real superstate, undemocratic.
I'm sure. Dictatorship?
Oh, it's got that potential too.
Although that's what Europeans have said about America and the new regime under Mr. Trump.
Good point,
I
Don.
don't believe that.
That's a really good point. They actually are saying that.
They are saying that, not that we concur, but it is being said. It's being said in this country, by the way, by the media. And Mr. Trump won by only, depends what you look at, statistics, about 1.5%. That's about all he's won by. So what do you say about that? A very impressive margin of victory through the electorate vote. But in the popular vote, not overwhelming.
Well, I think he's creating controversy with Greenland, Mexico, Panama, creating an upset. Of course, I follow the other side of the Atlantic, and they're very upset.
I think Greenland wants to stay Greenland with Denmark, but I'm sure there's some thousands of people would welcome America to Greenland. And America.
What about Canada? What about his statements concerning Canada? But he's got a point. I want to tell you what his point is. If you look at the European Union, which is now an incredibly huge market, and it's 400 and maybe 75 million citizens, and they're going to be taking in 10 new members over the course of the next 5 years, and that's going to bump them up even much, much further, possibly to 675 million citizens. So that's, my goodness, that's more than 500 million. So what Trump is doing by talking about Canada actually aligned with the United States is almost we would become this sphere.
That's right.
To be on par with this European Union that is evolving into a very strong and powerful empire. He sees it, possibly. But he's also surrounding himself with some real conservatives who he might listen to some of them, and they still believe that this thing is going to fall apart. It's never going to fall apart. You and I were in Brussels. I'm going to ask you a question. You saw the buildings. We were in Strasbourg at the Parliament. Is this thing going to fall apart?
No. No,
Wait, you have a right or a wrong answer. And if you answer wrong, you don't get any ice cream after the show.
Or we'll have...
you will be punished
we'll have...
with no ice cream.
No ice cream, no syrup.
No syrup done if you get that question wrong.
Yeah, okay.
And I have to get the questions right, or I don't get the ice cream.
All right. And what is the answer? You
said it correctly. Those buildings are monolith. It's almost funny because in Strasbourg you have this quaint, do you remember that? Sorry. You have this quaint, the cutest little city. It's a little paradise, and you have the cathedral, the Strasbourg Cathedral, which is just absolutely beautiful and stunning, even nicer than the Cologne Cathedral. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of this wonderful setting, and we're taking the boat ride, is this monstrosity, the European Parliament.
Right.
You remember that?
Like a dark force. It looked like Star Wars. You're entering the territory of Darth Vader. Welcome.
It was.
Welcome.
Do you remember that?
To the European Union. Don't walk on the lawn. Go away.
And the same
Leave
thing in
room.
Brussels, too. Brussels is like this really creepy city. Remember how creepy and strange? And then you're in the Grand Place, and it's like you're in a Disney movie. It's so fairy tale-like. And then you go to the Berlaymont, and in the middle of this, and the city is like this almost dull, boring, with these strange-looking cathedrals in the background. Like, they're not like the German or the French. They're really strange. You remember those cathedrals? How strange looking they were, and the people are just as strange.
A lot of tourists taking a look. That's what I also remember.
And
While
then,
they're praying, they want to see the art, and they want to take pictures inside the cathedral.
chocolates to die for.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't go
To die
anywhere
for.
else for chocolate. You have to go to Belgium. It's to die for. Great chocolate. Better than anywhere in the world. But those buildings, when you see the size, I mean, this is bigger than what's in Washington. What are your thoughts there?
Although
I'm talking the buildings, the scope and scale of those buildings, including the Parliament, which is modeled on the Tower of Babel, the architecture. So I think that this is going to be the season under Trump's presidency where you're going to see the power of this empire. Are they nervous? Absolutely. They're nervous about the tariffs because right now they've got to complete the single market. The single market's not complete. They're going into areas which they've not gone into before to complete, like finance, capital markets union, banking union, area of finance. They're going into the telecommunications, and there is also another area, energy. So they're going to complete this union based on Mario Draghi wrote a report, the Draghi report, and Enrico Letta, former Prime Minister of Italy, his report basically kind of says what Draghi's report says, but they cover different areas in different depth. So the commission is taking both of those reports. And I'm going to tell you something, Don. When they complete those areas of the single market, this thing is going to be unstoppable. It will become a real economic force to be reckoned with. I mean, they're already talking about they've got the power in their economy and their economy of scale to be to flex their muscles. Christine Lagarde has talked about this. So I think we're going to see that over the next few years.
on the domestic front, I'm very curious to follow Howard Lutnick, who's the incoming Secretary of the Commerce, who had much to do with the Trump campaign. He has pledged that he will gather 1,400 of the top business minds in the United States, and they will be a force to reckon with.
Oh, that's another thing. Now you have Mark Zuckerberg coming out against the European Union because, of course, the EU has been immersively fining U.S. tech companies and basically coming out against the EU. You have Elon Musk. So we're going to see some very interesting battles on the part of the European Union and the United States. But people now are starting to get it. And you're seeing these business leaders begin to get it. The question is it too late? Is it too late to get it and to make these changes? What's your opinion, Mr. Pravda?
I think it's not too late. It's early. We just have to see adjustments. We need diplomacy. We need interaction.
No, I disagree with you. So unequivocally, totally disagree with you. But we'll see. We'll be watching.
Okay.
Don is positive. He thinks America can still save itself. I say, nope, Europe has already got the makings of an incredibly powerful empire, and it's on that road, and it's too late now for America. Because Europe has about 80 different trade pacts. But that's what Trump, I think, by some of the things he is talking about, I think he is seeing it. There was a time when I believe in his last presidency where Steve Bannon felt he could dismantle this thing or get in with the right wing and conservative parties and dismantle this thing. It's impossible, because even with the conservatives now, you have the Patriots for Europe, third place in the European Union Parliament, you have the ECR party right behind them. It doesn't matter. They're still not able to get through enough conservative policy because the liberals really still make up about 70%. And then they issue this thing called the cordon sanitaire. Cordon sanitaire. So what they basically did, it's like saying that this is a threat to democracy or a threat to something. I don't fully get the cordon sanitaire, but the cordon sanitaire, what it did is it keeps Jordan Bardella, who heads the Patriots for Europe, from holding any key positions, which all of the presidents of the political parties in the EU should all be in the Conference of Presidents. They should, and they're not allowing any of those members from the Patriots for Europe, who are third place, because of this cordon sanitaire, which is totally undemocratic. That's what I mean. This is an undemocratic institution. There's all kinds of games and tricks that are played so that the liberals, now so liberals in the sense of more Europe, powerful empire, that's the crux of the liberals. The conservatives are less Europe. We want more say from the nation states. So the liberals are very different from the liberals in the United States. And the conservatives, similar in espousing family traditional values, but they're wanting more say from their nation states and feel that the nation state level should be, certain decisions should only be at the nation state level, which I actually agree with. They really need to provide a balance to Brussels, and there are certain issues that can only be dealt with at the nation state level, so the conservatives have a very good point. So I think they balance out, but the liberals still reign supreme. In the treaty proposals, the conservatives put in 6 articles, every one of them got scrapped. Not one was adopted.
Likewise, in America, the conservatives, or we should say the Republican Party, they only have a very small majority in the House, and they have a very small majority in the Senate. It's not like it's wildfire, it's narrow. And just a few victories away, that could change in midterm elections. Also something to follow very carefully. But I see more stars in the Republican Party rising than I see on the opposite side.
I agree with you. It's going to be interesting 4 years coming. And we're going to have a lot of fun talk, Don. We're going to have a lot of fun stuff to talk about.
Absolutely.
It's going to be crazy.
Weird, unusual. And that's who we are.
Twilight Zone.
Yeah, that's like us.
Like us.
Perfect fit. Hand in a glove.
Yes. And will you make those strange faces again? Come
don't
on.
laugh too
Give
much.
us one of the strange faces, Don. Come on.
Weird times are coming.
Just do that. Well, Don, I think it's time for maybe you to sign us off.
All right.
Or shall we keep talking?
Well, I hope you've had a real fine start to your new year. Follow us in the Twist News. We're cutting edge, and we want to speak to you. And we want to learn from you as well.
Yeah, let us know what you want us to talk about.
Yeah.
We just kind of go over the headlines here. We go what's happening in the world, and it's very kind of like we're informal. That's our new direction. That's the
Okay.
direction Donnie wants. It's the new direction.
Although I am wearing a tuxedo.
Yes.
And I'm not going to a charitable fundraiser. I'm just wearing a tuxedo, by the way.
Well, you're not alone. There is someone from Brussels Morning. There is a journalist, and he's also in the tuxedo and bow tie too. It might become a thing for.
Does he own a store or no? Oh,
No, no store.
no store.
He's writing for Brussels Morning. So be sure to hit the subscribe button, definitely, and stay tuned for more.
And thank you, and shalom, shalom, shalom.
Get down.
Запах, когда папа в будке, будке. Бради, бабы, ланти, шутки.